Hello, 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 everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in this world. I am here with a very special guest today. I am here with the CEO of Chia, Gene Hoffman. Gene, how are you today, man?
Doing very well and glad to be on again, Corey.
Absolutely, man. It's been a couple of months, and the last time I had you on, I think it was back in 2022. Man, time flies, man. It really
Time does
does.
fly. Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
it does. Too fast, in my opinion. So, Gene, I want to ask you. It's been a while since you and I the last time we spoke, and what have you been up to surrounding cryptocurrency and Chia specifically?
Well, obviously it's been a wild ride. A
Yes.
lot of the things that I think we've been predicting are coming true. Seeing
Hmm.
things like Justin Sun being accused of illegal securities offering, the SEC starting to put pressure on Coinbase about some of these things are securities. These are all things that we've predicted. That means that we've been really very busy on continuing kind of down our compliance process. We've always said that we want to be public on an enhanced timeline. Obviously the market conditions are not so great, but that doesn't change our ability to move forward and be
Right.
prepared for those market conditions. So, we continue to be involved with real conversations with things like commercial banks and other enterprises, folks who have supply chain problems. There's lots of interesting applications that are, in early conversations to then launch on the Chia blockchain. And then obviously, the Climate Action Data Trust from the World Bank, AIDA, in Singapore. The big exchanges are integrating as we speak. They kind of committed to be in there in March. And we're going to be launching the first batch of the IFC carbon coin very soon. So, really just continue to go build real world assets and, move the development infrastructure forward for the Chia blockchain.
I'm very happy to hear that because we're seeing regulatory compliance structures nearly as a universality through multiple jurisdictions, specifically in America, and we're seeing multiple different cryptocurrency projects getting subpoenaed. We're seeing multiple different individuals, for example, like Justin Sun, having this issue that is occurring. We just saw what happened with Coinbase I think it was actually yesterday or the
Less
day
than 24
before,
hours ago.
yeah, less than 24 hours ago. So we're seeing the fallout of what happened in 2022 as a result of CeFi products collapsing, which paved the justifiable way for regulatory compliance structures to come in. So I want to ask you, let's discuss Chia then in association to the notion of regulation. So as of yesterday, Coinbase received a Wells notice, which generally, for those who are not aware, is a predecessor to securities enforcement action. How is Chia positioning itself to not succumb to violations or enforcements from the SEC?
So the first thing we did is we did not commit the original sin. And the original sin is that most of these projects sold their coins to investors for an investment of money.
Mhm,
There's a lot of attempt to say that that's not what happened, but it is what happened.
mhm,
And you've also had people that do this thing they call the SAFT, the Simple Agreement for Future Tokens. The problem is the security laws aren't just about the issuer; they're also about the buyer in many cases.
mhm,
And ultimately, what the SEC wants to see is that investors are getting their liquidity correctly, either by qualifying for an exemption or selling under a registration statement.
mhm,
So we did give the company a pre-farm of coins. The company has done nothing with those coins except sit on them. All of
mhm,
the coins that actually trade are absolutely been created by the farmers and the protocol for reward for validating blocks.
mhm.
So, when you look back at the 2019 SEC guidance, we believe we are sufficiently decentralized. Bram and I can't dictate what happens on this blockchain to the point where one of our chips, chip three, Bram and Mariana wanted to add some more minimum fees to stop some spam. And the rest of the community was like, nah. And so it just died. And so it's really a differentiating factor. And it's also getting it right.
Right.
So, Bitcoin, the Nakamoto coefficient is 2 because the two biggest pools sign more than 50% of the blocks. This is
Mhm,
kind of a scary thing. Polygon, the Nakamoto coefficient is arguably lower, like Polygon, the company, and one other person can erase the history of the Polygon blockchain if they felt like it.
mhm.
These are scary things. And so, having the world's largest public validator count at about 120,000 nodes, an 80 plus Nakamoto coefficient, and we expect that to go up as people replot with compressed plots. Those are the things that really matter. Like, we do not have control of this network, and we have never sold coins until and unless we had all of the disclosure that the SEC could ever ask for from us first.
And when you look at it from that perspective, this is why you see like what has happened, for example, with library credits, what has happened with multiple different other projects that they've sold their tokens with the expectation of profit. And this is the main issue, I believe, that a lot of different cryptocurrencies and a lot of different layer ones are going to have to deal with moving forward. And this is unfortunately what we're seeing now is the SEC coming in, and many people perceive it as a war on cryptocurrency. And I believe that there is massive resistance against cryptocurrency for a lot of different ways. But I'm grateful to hear that Chia did not commit that, so-called original sin, because I think back then when a lot of these coins did this, they didn't have the foresight to understand that this cryptocurrency ecosystem was going to be mass adopted and is going to be regulatory compliant. So I think they lacked the foresight. I'm glad that you guys didn't. So
Yeah, and look, I think it's one of the things that holds back real world use. If you're a real world user, it'd be hard to buy one of these coins that is probably not a registered security in the United States. Where
right,
with Chia, it's absolutely a commodity. There's no argument legally that Chia isn't a commodity.
right,
And that makes it just so much easier for people to like buy carbon credits that are little bits of Chia that turn into carbon credits that you then retire, right?
yep,
It's those kind of core fundamental things you got to get right. Um, it's sad that we're gonna have to go through this kind of painful process of a lot of projects. Like, in the grand scheme, the library guys are not the dark black villain who's
yeah,
stalking around doing evil things. Not at all. They really were trying to do something real, and it's too bad that they were a poster child there.
right,
But the reality is people's distrust and dislike of what Gary Gensler is saying miss some of what Gary Gensler is saying. Bitcoin isn't a security. Coinbase's trading of Bitcoin is not in any way in question by what the SEC is up to.
hmm,
Now, the SEC is questioning whether some types of proof of stake or some types of proof of stake implementations could be securities, and they
hmm,
can. Now, proof of stake qua proof of stake isn't necessarily when done right, but not everybody did right. I mean, I think Justin Sun kind of gooses the stake returns with corporate coins,
yeah,
right? It's not necessarily the protocol doing it, and that's kind of an issue.
yeah,
So anyway, my point is that I actually believe if you go back and look at what Gary Gensler used to say when he was teaching, and that's available on YouTube, he
hmm,
understands this stuff very well, and he's looking for actually decentralized instead of decentralized in name only.
right. No, absolutely. There is a discussion that needs to be had surrounding decentralization and centralization. And I think that you, of all people, surrounding Chia, what you just highlighted, would be able to actually highlight what that actually means, because I think that over the last year you've had this amalgam of DeFi and CeFi, and this cryptocurrency losing its way surrounding what decentralization actually means versus centralization. And I had this conversation with Bram a few days ago as well surrounding what exactly that really means, as both of you were original cypherpunks, which you guys understand that concept more than many. So I want to ask you then, before we go to the decentralization discussion, is Chia seems to be one of the few blockchains that may not succumb to regulatory scrutiny in the future. With your background in traditional finance, what do you foreshadow will happen universally surrounding cryptocurrency and blockchain in regards to regulatory compliance structures, specifically in America, and why?
So I think there's a lot of security, digital assets that are listed on Coinbase that are actually securities, and
Okay.
those are going to get delisted from American exchanges. So
Okay.
that's going to be a kind of painful process. It's not clear that's going to be global. There's certainly
Hmm.
like Ripple still trades around the world that's not in the United States,
Yep.
but these are not the blockchains that are likely to get real world adoption.
Hmm.
The XRP does not have enough features and functionality. It's not decentralized in any way.
Hmm.
You know, there's kind of two things going on here. Satoshi paved the way to create an unstoppable piece of technology, and it's relatively unstoppable. Now, it has an
Hmm.
attack surface around electricity and ASICs, which is unfortunate, but it's likely to go on regardless of who bans it and blocks it and whatever
Right.
else, right? But Satoshi, by paving the way, made it so that Bram and I could be doxxed. So we could show you who we are, why we're here, why we care. I almost started a cryptocurrency in 1997. This is something I care deeply
That's
about.
awesome.
Yeah, but it was the problem that Satoshi solved that kept me from doing it. I mean, the reason I went and founded eMusic was that I was going to have to live on a strange Caribbean island surrounded by armed guards. Like, this is not exactly what you want.
No, not at all.
But because of that, now what we're able to do by simply complying with U.S. securities laws and like doing it right, then we're going to be able to build an infrastructure that lets asset issuers and DApp developers choose how they want to use regulation, and we're going to make it easier. So, we want to make it so that a startup in our ecosystem can raise money on chain, except it'll only sell to people that are known to be accredited with a verifiable credential that they're accredited and KYC'd, or only sell to non-US folks who, again, have the actual rigorous check, but then can automatically, interact with the offering and become shareholders. The securities laws are meant to be making sure people have information. They're not meant to stop things from happening. And so we actually think that by taking a permissionless and very Bitcoin spirited blockchain, I mean, we are literally fixed proof of work and add smart contracts to Bitcoin. Then at the base layer, you get permissionlessness, you get ubiquity, you get a safe haven if you're in a country who's devaluing their currency. To be Venezuelan is an unhappy thing for the last 20 years.
Yes,
but if you want to run a CBDC that, by the way, is privacy infringing because you're somebody in a country in Asia or a country in Central Europe where that wouldn't be seen the same way as replacing the US dollar, you can do that on Chia. And in fact, things like a US dollar coin that are fully anonymous long-term in a ZK rollup or in payment channels, that becomes a very realistic way to have the security you have, but then have each asset kind of, compete on its own in a marketplace on top of that permissionless infrastructure.
Would you then say, from all of this background knowledge and understanding what the SEC is doing and having literally the background knowledge of cryptocurrency, almost creating one 21 years before the inception of Bitcoin, there's this narrative going on from a lot of influencers and a lot of people who I feel like are using this as a means to engagement bait, and garner clout as a result. Do you believe that the SEC is declaring war on cryptocurrency?
No.
Okay.
So look, the drama llamas trying to get clicks are extreme right now. Great example. Somebody said Visa, pulling out of crypto. Visa's head of crypto is like, no.
That's what I figured.
And I have reason to believe he's correct. I'll just add it that way, right?
I know you're correct.
So I think there's a lot of fear, and I think there's a lot of attempts to stoke fear. Like, great example of this, on the weekend before we knew what was going to happen with SVB, I'm a First Republic customer. And to my knowledge, every First Republic customer has complete ATM fee rebate. So as a First Republic customer, you can go to any ATM in the world and withdraw cash. Why were people lining up at FRB ATMs when they could have gone next door to Bank of America and just drawn the same money out? So I think the things like there's been shorts, there have been people manufacturing some of these things to try to stoke the hysteria and, move their short position. And I see it no different in crypto. I think we're seeing people try to claim that the sky is falling and everything is dying. Now, it's going to hurt. Most projects are securities. There's no way out of that. But that's not because the SEC hates you. It's because the SEC doesn't want you selling securities without going through the registration process or not selling to the public. And if you claim your decentralized thing actually has a centralized backdoor on it, you're heading toward fraud.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think a lot of people who use Ethereum layer 2 scaling solutions understand the amount of trust they're putting in a very small number of people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to say thank you for the $5 super chat. Buy some carrots for the guinea pigs. I have guinea pigs, so thank you so much. I'm sorry?
Nearly marmots. Just kidding.
No, it's funny you say that because we are in an ecosystem that champions decentralization, that champions self-sovereignty, that champions peer-to-peer transactions, and yet the majority of blockchain projects out there are basically oligarchical in nature, whether it be oligarchical from a validator standpoint, whether it be oligarchical from a corporate standpoint, holding an immense amount of the token supply, whether it be oligarchical in the centralized process. of the particular cryptocurrency or blockchain. So that notion of decentralization that the cypherpunks, I wasn't alive during this, but the cypherpunks that embodied this principle, it doesn't seem like it's as strong as it should be in this space as it once was at the inception of Bitcoin and even prior to the inception of Bitcoin.
Well, look, if you can do an illegal securities offering, get all the value and the lower cost of capital, and then LARP as if you're a blockchain, there were a lot of incentives to do that. There are a lot of project teams who are in way over their head on the level of technology necessary to do this. You hear a lot of developers explain to other developers that you should never roll your own crypto. And they were usually talking about public key cryptography or single key cryptography. You really shouldn't roll your own blockchain unless you're Bram. This is really hard stuff because you are dealing with kind of the computer science asymptotic maximal in different places. So like for the Chia blockchain, it was, what theoretically could happen in storage and how could you beat these well-known time memory trade-offs that are part of the academic literature on one side. And on the other side, how can you beat the literature around like proof of stake has nothing at stake? And so how do you keep, validators from cheating effectively? So, these were really hard problems that we spent 4+ years going out and building new math to go solve.
Mhm.
This is not what most people did. They threw something together that looks like a blockchain, but it stalls every quarter and stalls for like 2 days, and that's not a blockchain. Our blockchain has had a single slowdown because we had another bug that Bitcoin also had, which is hilarious. And it was slowed down for like 3 hours, but it kept running, and it's since had 100% uptime. I mean, our trailing 12 months is absolutely 100%.
Mhm.
So that's what a blockchain is, right? But that's also around the world. We have 120,000 validators. I mean, Ethereum has, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 best case actual machines, right? They use this marketing metric that says that every 32 ETH staked counts as a validator. Not really. We have more validators just in Canada than Ethereum has globally. We almost have more in Ukraine, about 3,000.
That's insane.
So, yeah, and so we're literally that kind of decentralized. And people will definitely give us but you own a bunch of it and you're a corporation. We have no control. If we did something stupid, the community will take it from us. And what I mean by that is like, if Graham and I woke up tomorrow and chose violence, decided to cut the farming rewards that we'd all promised the protocol in half, no farmer download that. Somebody else would go fork the repo. They'd call it OpenXCH, and that'd be the dominant node and wallet software. Like, boom, done. So, we've intentionally built a model that we think is the best way to navigate having real resources to develop and continue to develop, rewarding people over the long term instead of the short term, aka you came here, you worked, you earned your equity, you invested as a private investor, you waited a couple of years to more before you can get liquidity because you built something that's worth getting liquidity for. A lot of these projects did this in the reverse. They raised a bunch of money up front, paid the developers, and they all drove off in Lambos.
Yeah. You're absolutely right on that. It's unfortunate because this is the regulatory compliance structures, I believe, is the byproduct of an industry that is riddled with scams, that is riddled with nefarious actors, that is riddled with hackers, that is riddled with backdoors that easily enable an oligarchical structure to have so much power over this emerging industry. So I tend to be, when I start seeing headlines about the SEC going to war on cryptocurrency and the SEC being despotic, I tend to look at it and I say to myself, well, I can see where people are coming from surrounding this, but I need to dig deeper and understand what the hell people are saying this for and why. And this is the pain that comes from the maturation of an industry, especially in the financial sector. So I agree with you 100%. And I want to ask you this then, because you bring up decentralization. I had this discussion with Bram, and I've heard this many times in Chia Twitter Spaces, where you have more nodes in a war-torn area than the second largest blockchain by market capitalization on the planet. And when it comes to the notion of decentralization, it appears that cryptocurrency may have lost its way substantially. How does Chia continuously embody the initial notions of cryptocurrency, which include decentralization, peer-to-peer networks, and digitized autonomy?
Well, I'll start with that. Bram and I both think the concept of governance with your coin is a bad idea. In Chia, it's like Bitcoin. Owning a lot of Bitcoin doesn't give you any special power over Bitcoin Core and what happens, and that's the way it should be. The second piece is just being very cognizant of what we're trying to build is something that does not rely on us. There are all sorts of things that you can take as shortcuts. I mean, the Ethereum Infura risk is pretty high. One entity controls most of the applications actually hiding underneath. So, I think there'll be a little centralization with us in one way, in that I think a lot of the biggest corporates and government adopters will be using our support services. But that's not the same thing as that all of the actual end users of the blockchain are using something from us that can't be replicated or replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it's not clear to us that we'll have the best fill in the blank. Like, already we think that some of the wallets in the community are better than ours, and that's what we want. Ours is there to serve as a reference to make sure people understand as we build some of these much more complicated tools around securities tokens and verifiable credentials and how DIDs get richer. But the actual implementations of those should be done by others. And in fact, I think long term we'll actually see alternate node implementations as well in other languages, other platforms. It's just such a decentralized thing that's what's going to happen. And that's what we want to see. I mean, the creativity, we're here to enable. We're not here to direct, and that's why it's permissions.
And I'm glad to hear. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Were you going?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. No, but and I like how you say that, because you've made it abundantly apparent, and I think it's very crucial that you as a corporate, and not you, but
right,
Chia as a corporate entity does not have that control over the coin, does not have control over the decentralized zeitgeist of what Chia actually is. Whereas in many cases, the corporate entity themselves actually has that type of that type of control. And we have some community question before I go on. Is that okay?
Certainly, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So $5 super chat from David James. Thank you so much. SEC says all securities. What happens to current holdings? Do you think they're grandfathered in?
So the secondary sales of existing security coins is an open question. There's litigation going on this on Library in Wally, the Coinbase employee who was doing insider trading of coins. So, it is not as clear that once a security, always a security is the actual rule. Now, I will say that the law has no guidance on this at all.
I figured.
It's very unclear for everybody. And it's less clear because the Howey test is applied for every transaction. So, if you bought, right, if you bought Tron today, it's not clear to me you're buying it because it's a security anymore. You're making a speculation on what people are going to respond on, right? So that is more of an open question. What I'm sure of is kind of two things. One is, your exchange exposure for these assets is going to get smaller. There's no real obvious place where these things can trade, especially in the United States, that you'll have easy access to. And I expect you'll see things like Canada and the UK follow, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, it really limits whether or not your blockchain can be adopted for real world use cases, because again, it starts to really complicate, a multinational's ability to use that because they have to be compliant in the United States.
I appreciate that answer. And I guess a follow-up question to that for me is then, let's say I held a coin like Tron that ends up being, or let's just use Library as a security, and I held the Library credits as a coin. Could there be some type of, I don't even know how they would implement this. Could there be some type of mandatory confiscation thing of token holders?
No. So this is where the laws gets really interesting. There are some people who this does not apply to. So if you were the founder, if you were one of the investors, if you own 10% of it all, mm-hmm. you might not be this case. Okay. Throwing everyone aside of those, you can buy and sell securities peer-to-peer, truly peer-to-peer, mm-hmm. basically unlimitedly. There are some rules about how long you have to hold it if you bought it from the issuer. But if you bought it in the secondary market, there's no real restriction on that. And the U.S. is a very simple set of laws. If you aren't told you can't do it, you can. So there's no real way for the SEC to like force everybody to turn in your Ripple or something. Not happening, right?
Okay.
Now, I will say that the SEC takes a position, I believe, in the library case, that all subsequent sales and use of LBRY remain securities.
Okay.
But the problem is the library is saying, okay, well, we're going to shut the issuer down, distribute the coins to a charity, and walk away. How can it be a security now? And the SEC has not got a good answer for that. And the judge in that case is kind of confused about it too. So I think we're going to see some interesting outcomes there. But this is the place where the SEC is not on the strongest ground. The secondary sales, it's a harder call.
Okay. All right. Well, that's refreshing to hear that there's not going to be some mandatory buyback program like it was in 1933, where the FDR implemented the investment. I forgot which law was the Investment Banking Act. It was the act basically that mandated that citizens have to give their gold back to the government at a 40% loss, right. Basically. Yeah.
No, it's not that. Now there is something hiding in here that's important. If one of these coins is found to be a security and there's still money left in the issuer, foundation, whatever it is, you as an investor may be able to go back to them and get your money back. That's part of the negative of being found to be a security that was offered in an unregistered offering. So, you may be able to go get made whole by Ripple, for example.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's a light of good news. So, okay, we have a $2 super chat by some mojos. Thank you, Chia Dog. We have a $10 super chat. Chia Tech and ecosystem is addictive. Great interview so far. Follow me, Gene. Waffle me, DGen said that. Thank you so much. Monkey Zoo asked Gene how many cryptocurrencies are not securities. Like, what's his best guess?
So when I did this on the top 50, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think all but like 10 or 11 of the top 50 are securities.
10. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
10 or 11 of the top 50 aren't securities.
Wow.
Okay. Oh. So let me give you examples of things that I think aren't securities. I don't think Litecoin is a security. I'm sure Bitcoin's not a security. I don't think you can say Doge is a security because no one expects any optional efforts of anybody with that. Everybody knows it's a joke, right?
Yeah.
If Tether wasn't always backed, it might be a security. I don't think Circle is a security, USDC, because again, it's always been backed, right? And to the extent it wasn't because of securities issues reasons. Thank you, banks. So those are the kind of analysis you have to look at. It's like, did the original team go out and get investment money in their thing? And if they did not, it's probably not a security.
Okay. All right. Well, that 10 out of 50. That's a lot. That's less than I hoped.
Like it infers about 80% are securities.
Yeah. Okay.
Though I worry that the largest ones are not illustrative of the smaller ones. I think the smaller ones might be more often securities.
That's okay. So let me ask you this then. It appears that Chia, we talk about decentralization, is one of, if not the most decentralized blockchain out there with over 120,000 nodes, like you said. How did Chia, in your opinion, achieve this feat? Like, how in God's name was that possible?
It's 3 things. First, it's Bram. And, for anybody who wants to, figure that out, I would suggest watching your earlier podcast with him a couple days ago.
Thank you.
Bram invented decentralized peer-to-peer. I mean, yeah. Bitcoin is named in homage to BitTorrent. And so, in fact, people were like, when's Bram coming over to Bitcoin? And he did. But, what he realized was that he could only help a bit. He couldn't really fix the things he was most worried about with Bitcoin. And so that's why we had to go this direction with Chia. But when Bram does something big, everybody's interested because they know that he used to use most of the internet for a little while, right? Mm-hmm. The second thing is, I think maybe more important, and that is that we've been able to keep the real original ethos of Bitcoin, mining at home, and actually deliver that. So farming at home, there was a Nigerian Techstars that like took some old enterprise hardware and farmed in a pool and had Chia to use in their project. Anybody can farm, really. It's like if you've got an old hard drive, and I mean, some of our community members are great. I think one of them's running a 16-year-old laptop that farms. It's that kind of super lightweight ability and the inclusiveness that anybody who has some storage space for whatever reason can absolutely participate. I think that's a big piece of it. And then the final thing is, there's a bit of a Chia Fight Club thing going on. There's a lot of original Bitcoin folks and original Ethereum folks are like, whoa, Bram did something really cool. I don't really want to talk about it because it might hurt my current bags, but I'm going to go ahead and farm it and make sure I have enough in case it goes way up later. I think there's a lot of that going on.
Absolutely. So you have the trifecta of what allows for decentralization to actually stand strong. You have the cypherpunk himself that really created literally the predecessor technology that pays homage to Bitcoin. That's the first thing. The second thing is you stay true to the principles of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And three, there's a focus on community sentiment and there's a focus on farming and mining. So you have this trifecta that enables the ability to keep decentralization alive when many other cryptocurrencies, I dare say, have not. And I just wanted to say, because I know that Waffle Me Degen had a $10 super chat and he forgot to put his Twitter handle in. He asked if you could follow him. He's a Chia tech and ecosystem fella. His Twitter handle is Waffle Me Degen and Degen Waffle _ NFT. So don't judge my simp. So just wanted to bring that up. So my conscience is clean. So if there was one thing, I want to ask you this then. If there was one thing that you'd say personally, Gene, is your favorite component of either the Chia coin or blockchain itself, what would it be and why?
Offers. I think that offers are ultimately going to be seen as one of the foundational technologies of a new financial infrastructure.
And what do you mean by that? Like, what exactly are offers?
Yeah, so if people don't know, in Bitcoin, these are partially signed Bitcoin transactions, but they have limitations in Bitcoin they don't have with us. An offer is the ability to propose a transaction with anyone on the world, complete that transaction safely with no escrow and no trust of any third party whatsoever. So let me walk you through what that looks like. One way to buy Chia is you can go to Stably, which is our little baby USDC. You put $40 of US fiat into there and say, hey, please send me 40 stable coins. So those appear in your Chia wallet. As a user, you could say, hey, I want to buy one Chia and I'm going to put 38 of those as my offer for that Chia. And so what I do is I create a transaction where I spend 38 of those coins in. I create one Chia from scratch, just, poof. And I sign that. If I put that through on the blockchain, it bounce because, of course, one of the key things is you can't create assets. You can only, mutate them. But if I email that to somebody or post it as a QR code on Twitter or put it on a bulletin board like Dexy.space, people can take a look at that and go, I'll sell somebody a Chia for 38, download that, inspect my signature. Yeah, it's valid. Yeah, the coins I'm offering exist on the chain and therefore are valid to go transfer. And then what you do is you sign a partial transaction on your side as the taker where you spend in one Chia and you spend out the 38 stable coins to your wallet. Once you sign that, we're using a much more modern signature technology called BLS. Those allow you to add the two signatures together. And now you have one valid signature on a complete transaction that you can now push through on the blockchain. As the maker, you can cancel by just spending those coins. And everybody in the world who sees those offer files can see at the same time that offer is now canceled. And it gets it's able to get much more complicated in a good way. So you can do things like over data layer and over the Climate Action Data Trust. And this is kind of a real example between actual users. Japan can propose to Peru that if Peru makes this change in their voluntary carbon registry, Japan will make that change in theirs, and they'll sweeten the pot with $1 million. And Japan signs that and emails it to Peru, and the Peruvian negotiators confirm that everything matches. And if they agree, they make their side of that transaction, and the database updates and the spend are all atomic. And it gets even better when you start talking about oracles, because you can do things like, well, instead of 38 coins, I'm going to stake up a slightly higher amount, and I'm willing to trade up to 3% off of this one oracle. And so if I trust that oracle, or if I average across a couple oracles, all of a sudden you start getting, even more sophisticated kinds of proposals in those offer files.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate you breaking that down, because I think that people need to understand a little bit of that type of technology. And I will say personally, I'm not the most tech savvy. So to be able to understand that. I'm sure if I don't understand it, I'm sure many other people as well don't understand that. So I appreciate you highlighting that.
Yeah, and if I could add, I mean, the thing
Yeah,
that
go
really
ahead.
means when you step up is when you do peer-to-peer DeFi on Ethereum or clones, you're actually peer to smart contract to peer. And so you're trusting that smart contract is correctly written, there's no backdoor from the developer, and the North Koreans haven't recently found a backdoor to it. When you're talking about a Chia offer file, it's truly peer-to-peer. The only thing you are trusting is the blockchain and the quality of the signature. So you're at, cryptographic primitives only. And that's a really big difference.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate that. And we have two more community questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So we have the $10 super chat. Sasquatch, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. I'll get to that in 1 second. I just want to ask Soloist Time Lords first. Does the coin lineage of UTXO versus the account model make a chain more or less censorship resistant? Is there something to be said for the full fungibility of something, for example, like Monero?
So I do think that the coin or UTXO model is much more, is much less able to be censored. The centralized smart contract model in the account model means that you kind of have a core place to go as a regulator and mess with it. And we've seen this with Tornado Cash. Now, I don't think that legally that regulators can say you can't use that smart contract. I don't think that's something you can do in the US.
Mhm.
But no matter what, in the coin model, everybody owns their own coin. And so if you ever wanted to try to like round up all the coins, you'd actually have to go to each individual owner and like get a court order, I guess, and hope that they have their private key. It's very, very different. And therefore, I think it's much stronger as a censorship resistant infrastructure. Now, it is harder to develop in. I mean, like most of what learning Chia Lisp is, as far as like work, is actually learning the coin or UTXO model. Not a lot of people have done kind of deep development on Bitcoin because it was harder and it didn't really have true smart contracts. So you didn't have a lot of people kind of go there. But once you understand how the coin model works, it's one of the reasons like we're so much more efficient with so many more nodes. We literally, only touch the individual coins that are relevant to this transaction instead
Mhm.
of like 1,000 people trying to touch this one NFT contract on Ethereum.
Mhm. Absolutely. No, I appreciate you answering that question. And then we have a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Hi, Gene. How close is Chia to opening other avenues for U.S. customers to buy Chia without stably? He said, stably for me has not been a very good experience, he said.
Well, first, I would say Stably's experience is getting a lot better. I
Okay.
would suggest, giving it a try. And I think there's going to be some fun stuff coming there. We are very active in trying to find additional on ramps, especially really to support the NFT community. We want it to be that you could easily go from I want an NFT on Chia to, I got 500 stable coins otherwise.
Yeah.
Announced in the product roadmap is that we're writing the technology for an ETH bridge, which will bridge over ETH and wrapped USDC. But we're expecting community folks to actually be the multi-sig on that. And so, you should expect that during the summer, most likely. So there's going to be better on ramps so that, anywhere you can get USDC, you can come and, use USDC on the Chia blockchain, for example.
Okay. So then we have, thank you so much for the super chat, Matthew. BLS HSM's availability. What's with CZ and Brian Coinbase shrugging off Chia?
So on the first part of that, Ledger has finally gotten BLS fully implemented in Ledger, and we were waiting for some software changes on them to finish our part of that. But we will probably be on the Ledger very soon.
Awesome.
There are still other HSMs that do not yet have BLS support, but the IETF standard now is correct for both Ethereum and us. And so people are using the same BLST from Supranational to kind of implement that. So you should start to see that roll into anything else. Look, on the exchanges, I really can't comment. That's up to them. We've done what we need to do to make sure that they're aware of the benefits and that we are not a security. It's up to you all to make it clear to them that you want to be able to trade it there.
Cool. Okay. So my last question to you, Gene, and before I do that, for the people watching and who will watch this, I want to respectfully ask if you can go in the description and follow Gene on Twitter. I have his link in the description. I have the official Chia website in the description as well if you want to check that out. I also have Gene Hoffman's Keybase in the description as well. So make sure to check out these links and make sure to like, share, and subscribe and share this video if you find this information valuable. And I've also had Gene on in the past, and I've also had Bram Cohen on as of, I think, 3 days ago now. So you may want to check that interview out as well. So my last question to you, Gene, is where do you want to see Chia by the end of 2023, and what narratives do you want to see embody the foundations of the Chia blockchain going forward?
So by the end of 2023, we really want to have yet another major use case that's outside of the carbon market. It's important for us to really talk about how the carbon market came to us because of our kind of unique capabilities, both around a very secure consensus mechanism that doesn't use much electricity at all, a secure programming environment in GLISP. That's one major thing. The other major thing is, we already see this happening, but real focus on this is the year that we think our ecosystem will really get traction. We're seeing cool stuff like Space today launched Trading View on the bulletin board. It's pretty darn cool to see like what the direct DEX trading volumes look like over time. Neat stuff. So, that's the other piece that I think is important. And then, we'd really like to get to a place where we can more easily demonstrate that our view on regulation and our compliance is a well understood view by those who matter in that world. So, we expect some pretty significant steps this calendar year on that.
Awesome. And I want to say, Gene, it's always refreshing to have an initial original cypherpunk that really, and I say this in the most complimentary ways, is an anachronism of the principles of what cryptocurrency once stood for, not necessarily what cryptocurrency does stand for at this moment. And I think that it's, for me, just it's refreshing to speak with you. It's very refreshing to have conversations with someone who has this background knowledge. And I'd love to have you on sometime in the future.
Happy to come back.
Absolutely, man. I'll have you on sometime in the near future, as I always do, man. I love having these type of conversations. So, again, thank you so much for everyone who came in. Matthew KG, thank you for the super chat. Chia Dog, can you create a Chia wallet, Corey? I think I have a Chia wallet. Let me double check. I think I do. So let me double check on that. So I want to thank you so much again for your time, Gene.
My pleasure. Thank you, Corey, and thank you to your subscribers. Hit that like and subscribe button.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we will definitely have Gene on again, and we will definitely have Accept Cookies on again to discuss more about Chia soon. So again, Gene, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Corey.
Absolutely. Just give me 1 second. This is my outro. The